Welcome, everyone, to our third session in our organizational change management series, Clearing the Obstacles and Managing Resistance to Change. If you're not familiar with Link ERP Partners, we are a specialized ERP consulting firm built by seasoned Envoy and Lawson experts who have been delivering successful ERP solutions since 1997. We're a team of consultants with an average of 20 plus years of Infor experience, having supported nearly 500 organizations across healthcare, public sector, education, utilities, retail, hospitality, and research. Many of our clients recognize us from firms like Bales and Associates, Paradigm, and ISH, where we've brought trusted expertise back together with a modern, flexible delivery model here at Link ERP. What differentiates us is our focus on real outcomes, not just implementations, where we combine deep technical knowledge with organizational change management, ensuring solutions are adopted, embedded, and deliver long-term value after go live. Our leadership team brings hands-on, real-world experience where we lead growth and success with a strong emphasis on long-term partnerships, while our change leadership capabilities, led by Don Williams-Zabicki, brings decades of experience guiding organizations through large-scale ERP transformation, aligning leaders, engaging stakeholders, and preparing teams for change. At Link ERP Partners, we believe ERP success happens at the intersection of people, process, and technology. My name is Luke Neal, the Director of Growth and Success at Link ERP Partners. I've spent the last 9+ years in the Infor and Lawson space helping clients optimize, upgrade, or implement Infor Lawson. And now I'll turn the presentation over to Don Williams-Zabicki, our change management expert.
Hi, everybody. I'm Don Williams-Zabicki. As Luke mentioned, I am the founder of Envoy Change Management. We are a change management consulting firm that specializes in ERP transformations. I've had the privilege of working with a large majority of the folks at Link ERP for well over 7 years. We've probably done over 20 implementations together. And one of the things we've consistently seen is that when a client chooses to integrate organizational change management into the ERP program itself, they have significantly increased their adoption rates, shortened their time to productivity, meaning getting out of that valley of despair in a quicker time frame, and it reduces that resistance-driven delay. At the end of the day, adding change management to your ERP program really helps to protect that business value that you've invested in with this product. So with that, we've come up with a couple of key trainings just to give you a little taste of what organizational change management is. We started with an intro, the basics, the essentials of OCM. The second one was a session that talked about the leadership role in managing, driving, and navigating, helping the organization navigate through change. And this final session is on managing resistance. So a critical component of change management is managing resistance to change. On every project that we've been a part of, there has always been some resistance. It's to be expected when people are asked to do something completely different, when you introduce change into their lives. But what if resistance, if you don't look at it as a problem, but instead as a signal? That's what we're going to do today. We know that if we see a warning sign on our car dashboard, if we ignore it, the problem isn't going to go away. We have to address the problem. It's the same thing when we begin to see patterns of behavior that demonstrate resistance. It's a warning light that something is off, and it's really critical that we address it and not brush it under the rug. Again, resistance is natural. Expect it during your transformation project. People experience change differently, and they're going to move through the stages of change at different paces and with different levels of significance. People might go through phases of denial, then frustration, then begin to start to get on board and start exploring with the new system and processes to eventually, we hope that people are all going to commit. What we're going to do today then is talk about how to recognize resistance, what patterns, what behaviors might you be seeing, understand the process of the change curve using the Kubler-Ross change curve as a model to understand it, and then how to integrate resistance management into your project plan. Resistance isn't always loud. It's not always obvious. You don't have people saying, hey, I'm going to resist this project. Instead, it's more covert. You might miss subtle indicators if you're not paying attention. So in the next two slides, what I want to share with you are the types of resistance or those observable behaviors. I do want to start out by saying that just one incident in one of these behaviors doesn't necessarily mean resistance. That could very well be we're just having a bad day today. What we want to look at is if we see a pattern or a trend of various behaviors. So going into that, keep that in mind as I begin to talk about some of the types of resistance that you may observe during the life cycle of your project. You may see emotion out of people that you don't typically see in the workplace. People will be experiencing fear. Fear, will I be able to learn this? Will I make the grade in the new environment? They might be feeling loss. Maybe responsibilities are shifting from themselves to somebody else. Maybe there's sadness, anger, certainly anxiety. There will certainly be points where everyone on the project team does experience some frustration, but we want to watch the trends and patterns and if that moves into depression. We may see disengagement. What does that mean? Withdrawing. People become quiet. They avoid meetings. They avoid you. They begin to ignore communications. You send an email, they don't respond. You send a second one, they don't respond. Perhaps they're just indifferent or expressing some apathy, and the morale is low. You might see impacts to people's work. People's productivity can reduce. Maybe they're not complying with standards, policies, procedures that they always had in the past. Maybe you'll see people taking off work more often than they typically had, and mistakes being made in the work that you typically wouldn't see out of that particular employee. And you might, in fact, see that overt type of behavior. Conflict might increase. Someone might become more controlling or overbearing, more arguments, sabotaging the project. And I'll take a short break to give you an example. The very first job I had out of college, which led me to my interest in organizational change management. We were implementing a new trade tracking system. I worked for a Wall Street investment banking firm. And one of the people that I worked with had been in the industry for 25 plus years. Everything had been done manually and on spreadsheets. We were putting in a system that was going to automate a lot of our jobs. One morning I came in to pick up my month-end financial reports and I found them in the trash. This person was so fearful of the loss of her particular role, her responsibility, that she tossed the reports from the new system in the trash. I'm sure she understood that she wasn't going to upend the project, but it certainly did cause a bit of a delay in the project. So that was an act of sabotage. But what did I do about it? Well, we addressed it. We asked her, well, why did you throw the reports away? And she said, well, they were not accurate. The reports weren't complete, so I knew they were going to be unuseful. So perhaps her approach to tossing the reports in the garbage was that without consulting me. It certainly was a demonstration of a bit of resistance, but when we broke it down, she actually had a very valid point that the reports were wrong. So back to our beginning, where maybe resistance is a warning sign, in that particular case, where she was trying to sabotage the day and getting our month-end close parallel testing complete, she certainly had a valid point, and I'm glad that we resolved it. Some other types of resistance, you'll see negativity, rumors and gossip. This is the water cooler talk that is so critical to get control of. Folks coming, perhaps everyone's in a design session, it's a really good session, but one person comes out into the hallway and runs into another fellow colleague, and they ask, so what's really going on in that workshop? What we say at the water cooler can impact the tone of the project and how others are going to receive it as well. So we want to manage and monitor the gossip mill that does happen in the workplace. There can be miscommunication, objections, complaining, and sarcasm, and focusing too much on the problem versus, hey, there's a problem, let's find the solution. We talked a little bit about avoidance. You might see people ignoring changes or reverting back to old behaviors, particularly after go live. Too often people will resort back to the way they used to do things, pulling out old spreadsheets or databases that they have hidden on a server under their desk. So we want to watch for that, and then building barriers. So finding excuses. Oh, we can't go live because this one thing is not completely finalized. Perhaps having secrets amongst project teams or various leaders, and just a general breakdown of trust. And then finally, controlling, where you have folks who are asking a lot of questions. They're trying to influence outcomes, maybe not for the best benefit of the organization as a whole. Defending the current state. No, this is the way we've always done it. How many times will you hear that during your design sessions?
Oh yeah.
That's a big, we want to watch for that one, right, Luke?
Yep.
And then using status to try and control something. We had a project where the controller was very uncomfortable about changing the account code combination, the structure, and insisted that, I've been here the longest, I'm the controller, we're going to do it this way, despite what best practice was telling everybody to do. So just to summarize, you may see people acting negatively. You may hear people complaining. You may hear people bringing up a problem. That's fine. What we want to watch for is when we see this as a pattern, right? And that they cannot get beyond a particular problem or an issue. When we see a pattern of behaviors is when we, as leaders on the project, want to address it. And at Envoy Change Management, we have a very comprehensive guide based on the type of behaviors that we see. We have a tool that allows you to ask questions to dig a little deeper to try and get to the root cause of why the behaviors may be occurring. And then that tool actually has recommendations for, based on the root cause of why someone may be resistant, on how to address it. Sometimes it requires a one-on-one conversation. Sometimes it requires some lifting up of morale. Sometimes it requires getting them more involved and taking more ownership in the project. So we do have a very formal method to help leaders understand or observe and recognize the resistance, and then assess what could be the root cause, and then some tools around how to help to turn that around. Next, I want to share with you what's called the Kubler-Ross change curve. This may look a little bit familiar to you if you've ever dealt with grief, experienced grief as a result of a loss. And if you think about it, when you're changing the way you work in a significant way, you can understand that some people may in fact go through some of those same phases that we may experience as we're going through the grief cycle. But we use this model so that we can understand where people might be on this change curve, and most importantly, how to address them when they're in a particular phase. If you're in a phase of, for instance, shock or denial, you're not going to want to go in with balloons and trying to rev up the morale. So let me walk you through this change curve, and as I said, how we best address whether it's an individual or a team when they're in a particular phase. So as much as I like to believe that everyone is excited about an ERP transformation, I've been doing these for almost 30 years. I love the process. not everybody is as enthusiastic as I am. I recognize that. So your teams, individuals, may go through all of these phases. Some will go from the beginning of shock to directly into integration and commitment to the project. Others will start up the curve, then down the curve, then up, and maybe circle back through. Change and the response to it is not linear. It's not a straight line from shock and denial to complete commitment. So just be aware of that. So let's take this change curve and talk through it. For many people, we hear, okay, we're going to implement Envoy ERP. We're going to implement finance and supply management. It's going to completely automate and improve and optimize the way we do our finance, accounting, and supply chain management. Some people may be excited from the get-go. Some people may be shocked. Maybe you've done a couple of implementations in the past and they haven't been so successful, and you've got the guy in the corner saying, oh no, here we go. Another project, right? So another one of these projects that isn't going to work so well. So some folks are shocked at the beginning. Then they move into that denial phase where they're sort of in disbelief and they're thinking, this isn't really going to happen, or this isn't going to be successful. None of the past implementations were successful. So what do we do when we've got folks, whether it's a team or an individual, in that denial phase? Well, we're not going to come in and throw a party for them, but what we want to do at that phase is create alignment. And if you take a look at this slide, you can see we're color coded from where we are in the change curve to the boxes on the right-hand side that explain how we address people in those particular phases. So we create alignment. We want to provide information. We want to provide education. We want to provide a little bit of sympathy, understanding, and support. The next phase is to move into a period of frustration. Okay, leadership is committed to this. We're going to do it, but it's going to change the way I do everything. And so now I'm frustrated. I know things are going to be different. I'm irritated. It's going to be different. Maybe I'm a part of the project team, so I'm doing both jobs. I'm doing my regular day job and I'm on the project team. I'm really frustrated. So at this point, we want to maximize our communication and we want to listen. When people are frustrated, listen, empathize, and provide some opportunities to resolve the conflict that's going on either within them personally or across the team. The next phase we call depression. We're in a low mood. We've hit that valley of despair. We know that we're not turning back. Things are going to be hard. It's going to be hard to change. Am I going to be able to do it? I've been working really hard and now I'm low energy, not feeling great about all of this. So what is your role as a leader when your team or individuals have hit that valley of despair? You want to motivate, encourage people, recognize the effort that they've already been through, provide coaching to lift them up out of that valley of despair. And ideally, they begin to move into that experimental stage. Okay, I've got some support behind me. I'm going to start tackling the system. I'm going to go in and run some reports. I'm going to go into the tool and figure out how it works. So get people engaged, train them, help them build their skills, get them to explore and get comfortable with the new system, the new processes, the way the data is laid out, etc. And then ideally, we move out of the experiment phase into that decision phase where we are learning how to work in the new world and we're beginning to feel a little more positive and a little more confident. Don't desert your team at that point. Continue to encourage them. Encourage collaboration with others. Encourage those folks who have reached that decision phase to pull the others up who might be in that valley of despair, in that depression mode. And encourage continuous improvement. And then at the end of the day, we have got a team that is fully bought in, changes are integrated into the way that we work now, and you've got a renewed individual, renewed team, renewed organization as a result of your successful implementation and the embracing and adoption of the technology and processes that you've implemented. So change is a journey. And some folks are going to go through this curve very quickly. Some won't even have to go through it at all. They might go from you're telling them about the project and they're fully committed from day one. But the reality is that most people will experience some of this. And depending on how significant their experience is, the more you can engage as a leader to meet them where they are and provide them with what they need at that point, the faster you're going to move people through that change curve to the point of acceptance, commitment, and ultimate adoption. So now that you have been introduced to types of behaviors to look out for and the change curve, I want to talk a little bit about how we integrate management of resistance into the Envoy implementation journey. So you've seen this slide before, our phases of implementation. At the beginning part of the project, what's most important is really to train leaders and project team members on resistance management. Expose them to what I just shared with you, types of behaviors to watch out for, patterns versus individual occurrences, and an understanding of that change curve and the fact that based on where people are, you want to address them and meet them where they are and deliver to them what they need at that particular time. So share that, build that capability across your team and your leadership group. When we move into the design and build phase, this is where the rubber begins to meet the road, right? We're designing the future state. This is a very critical time to be educating and informing people, lots of communication. You want to watch for behavior patterns that begin to show resistance. Is there a particular person who shows up late to every meeting? Is there someone who is not showing up to meetings at all? Is it that you are aware of hallway gossip? Keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening. Work with your change manager, work with HR, work with the leaders of those particular folks who are demonstrating resistance patterns, and address the issue. We can't brush it under the rug. Let's see. Moving into the testing and training phase, we want to extend that resistance management training to a wider audience. So now we're beginning to introduce the wider audience, right? The end user group who will be using the Envoy system. So frontline leaders, managers, and supervisors who may not have been a part of the project need also to have that understanding of resistance management, what to look for, how to address it. So we share that resistance management training with that wider audience of frontline leaders. Provide coaching to managers. So folks that have not had to deal with a manager or supervisor who hasn't had to deal with and address head-on a resistance issue, we provide that kind of coaching, recommendations on how to address it. And of course, during that testing and training phase, provide as much time as possible for training and practice in the system. As folks get more comfortable using the tool, the resistance levels decrease. And then, of course, at Go Live, continue to celebrate the successes and continue to monitor resistance to the new ways of working. Watch to make sure that we're not going back to old patterns of behavior, old spreadsheets, etc. And during the optimization phase, reinforce those new processes and the daily behaviors by encouraging folks to continue to embrace the change and build in processes for continuous improvement. So resistance isn't something that you can completely eliminate. I want you to anticipate that there will be resistance. We don't want to look at resistance as just an obstacle, but it's an opportunity to engage with people, understand where their concerns are. Very often it is a valid concern that could lead, for instance, in the example that I gave you in my very first experience at work, where my colleague had thrown away reports. There was actually something wrong with the reports. It wasn't just a passive-aggressive approach because she was upset about the new way of working or the new reports. There was something wrong with them. So listen to your teammates who are demonstrating some resistance and find what the kind of the kernel of truth in that so that you can address issues and move forward. Respond to folks with the right actions based on where they are in the overall change curve. Build trust. There's nothing more important than having a trust across the team such that people will be open and share information. as a result of addressing and engaging with folks who are resisting, we actually can strengthen the likelihood of adoption overall. And then, of course, by managing and dealing head on with resistance, it will keep our project moving forward. I know we've just kind of scratched the surface on resistance management today. So if you'd like to take a deeper dive into resistance management and some of the tools and techniques that we use, please feel free to reach out to Luke, and we will get a conversation going. So with that, I will just wrap up. There were 3 training classes in our organizational change management series: laying the foundation, change management essentials, building alignment, and that was how we energize leaders for ERP success, and then this final one of clearing the obstacles, managing resistance to change. If you haven't seen the other 2, feel free to go back and look at them. And from here, I will turn it back over to Luke.
Thank you so much, Dawn. Like Dawn said, if you'd like to learn more about how we can help you and your organization in your current or future ERP project, please feel free to reach out to us and schedule a one-on-one. Thank you so much, and we hope you have a wonderful day.
Are we out?